I'm just glad that we are all alive. That's it.
Right now, we're tracking severe weather on the Gulf Coast.
Laura slammed ashore in the early hours,
lashing the Louisiana and Texas coast with torrential rain.
Why would you stay in harm's way?
Thank you so much for watching This Is Now. We'll get to our coronavirus coverage in just a moment, but first, the latest on Laura. The storm was downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm, but it's still bringing destructive winds and flooding to parts of the U.S.
We've got Courtney Zubowski joining us live from Galveston, Texas now. Courtney, what's the latest you can tell us about the death toll and damage?
Well, Jonathan, the death and destruction, that is all in Louisiana, where we are right now. Galveston got lucky. So let's just talk about Louisiana. Right now, we have 4 confirmed deaths. All of those deaths, the governor of Louisiana is attributing to the wind, which forced trees onto homes. And one of those deaths include a 14-year-old girl who was riding out the storm with her family. As far as destruction, we're seeing roofs ripped off, glass blown out of buildings, homes knocked down, cars toppled over, and of course those trees down, which knocks down power. At one point, about 800,000 people were without power. Jonathan?
So Courtney, why don't we talk about the pandemic and what's been the impact there with this disaster response?
You see the impact everywhere. First, start with before the storm, the preparations when they tried to get people out of town. They had to put them on buses. Well, you have social distancing. You can't put 50 people on a bus, so they had to put 15 people on a bus and get more buses. So that took more time. Then you have the possibility of shelters. You usually have convention centers or schools. Well, you can't pack them in there with those cots that we see. So this time they had to look for hotels. And the concern there, and what ended up happening, was people were evacuating from areas in Beaumont, in Lake Charles, in Louisiana, to places like Austin, San Antonio, some 300 miles away. And by the time they got there, the hotels were they were run out. They ran out. And then now, with everything that's happening, people need to find places to stay, and those hotels are already booked up. So COVID-19, the coronavirus, has made this hurricane even worse.
And Courtney, if you could talk about what the spirit of the people, you hit on it there just a little bit, but this is a lot to handle for folks.
It is, but one thing you do have to understand is this area is used to storms. The Texas-Louisiana Gulf Coast has been through a lot. You can remember the names, Ike, Harvey. They've been through it before. Of course, it's disheartening when it happens so often. Lately, it's been saying it happens often. But the community bands together. When Harvey happened, Louisiana helped out Harvey, and now Texas is banding together to help Louisiana.
Courtney Zubowski, thank you so much for joining us from Texas there. We'll want to check in with you later on in the week too. Thank you.
And now to our coronavirus coverage. Health officials say 4 more patients with COVID-19 have died, bringing Hawaii's death toll to 55. DOH is also reporting 306 new COVID-19 cases today. The breakdown by county shows 289 are on Oahu, 10 are on the Big Island, and 7 are on Maui. And new at noon, the state education department announced it will be extending distance learning through the first quarter, which ends on October 2nd. This comes after mounting concerns from parents and teachers about health and safety on campuses amid the pandemic. Students who were supposed to move to a blended learning model on September 14th. The extension applies to all Oahu schools and most neighbor island schools. Hana High and Elementary School on Maui and Kilohana Elementary, Mauna Loa Elementary, and Molokai Middle Schools on Molokai will continue their current models. During this phase, schools will continue offering learning hubs on campuses for students without technology at home, as well as educational programming for vulnerable students. And surge testing continues on Oahu. There are at least 3 sites open today, and tomorrow, more tomorrow and Saturday. These are pictures from Kalakaua District Park in Kalihi. Yesterday was the first day, and a long wait and traffic caused some people with appointments to give up. The goal is to test 60,000 people, even those without symptoms. Councilman Joey Monahan joined Billy V this morning on Sunrise to talk about the new surge testing program.
You must have an appointment, which means you can go online. Do I need a COVID-19 test? Go to those places if you want to make yourself an appointment. I am hoping that they're still taking appointments. Right now, Joy Manahan is the city councilman from Iwilei all the way out to the stadium below the freeway, which includes Kalihi here.
Yes.
You were canvassing last night. You were actually walking up to people handing out flyers.
Yeah, well, not necessarily walking up to people, but just at least leaving them on their doors, leaving them in stores, just to get the word out, especially for pre-registration, which is key for this event. And what we're trying to do is get people to pre-register so they don't have to spend too much time in the line.
How happy are you to have this event here?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, I'm elated. I mean, this is something that we've needed perhaps since April. You know, but it's great that we're having it now. The federal government is providing the surge testing program, which is low barrier, it's free, and it's easy to get to. And so I believe that's why we're seeing success here.
2,100 people that are registered, and the line continues, so they're going to get the testing.
Yes.
In regards to the mayor and the governor and the stay-at-home order, do you think that this waited too long, or it's good timing? Your thoughts?
Well, no, certainly. I think, it's timely now that we have the surge testing program, because I think that's what we needed to do. When we had the curve flat, we really need to be testing aggressively and tracing aggressively to be able to keep the curve flat. And so hopefully now with this program we can do that.
Do you think the stay-at-home order came soon enough?
Well, they're only as good. I mean, if you're going to have a complete and total lockdown, I think you also need to have aggressive testing and tracing simultaneously, right? And so I think at the very least, this one is timely.
You mentioned contact tracing. You had some heavy-handed words for the Department of Health. Why did you have those words for them? Your thoughts?
Let me tell you, Billy. I mean, if we have to go wear our masks out in public, or if we're made to stay at home, I would think that part of that job is testing and tracing. So the department has to do their part while we do our part. So testing and tracing is as important as wearing your mask.
So as we show you this area behind me, once again, people are in line. That line goes from that jungle gym, the green one that you see, all the way down a whole row of buildings over to the basketball courts. There's a whole green grassy area for people to be socially distant. They've registered 2,100 people and they'll go through here today. But once again, if you're going to any of the testing sites, you have to make an appointment first. The website, doineedacovid19test.com. From Kalakaua Park, I'm Billy V. From Kalihi, on This Is Now.
Now to the growing confusion over the guidance that's been issued by the CDC. It's now saying people who don't have coronavirus symptoms don't need to be tested. Here's NBC's Ann Thompson.
New CDC guidelines that say people exposed to COVID with no symptoms no longer need to get tested brought a swift backlash from the medical community.
I think most public health officials believe that this is a bad change. We need to be testing people who are asymptomatic, not shying away from doing those tests.
The American Medical Association calling the change a recipe for community spread and more spikes in coronavirus, and new caution from the nation's leading infectious disease expert. In his statement, Dr. Anthony Fauci said he was under general anesthesia and in surgery the day the task force adopted the new guidelines. He recalls quickly reviewing them, but now, after reading them carefully, says he has some concern that the revised guidelines could be interpreted as lessening the importance of asymptomatic spread of virus in the community. Adding, without testing those who come in close contact with COVID but show no symptoms, asymptomatic spread to others could occur. The changes sparked suspicions of political interference. President Trump urged less testing earlier this summer.
Here's the bad part. When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
But the administration's testing czar, Admiral Brett Giroir, said there was no direction from the president or vice president on the new guidelines. As for the changes themselves, Admiral Giroir defended the move, saying tests should now be focused and strategically done, not for the sake of being tested. We're trying to do appropriate testing, he said, not less testing. A strategy Harvard's Dr. Ashish Shah questions.
Too often out of the CDC and out of the administration, we have seen guidelines that are not really designed to optimize health and safety of the American people, but really are just an admission that we don't have enough tests in the country.
The new shutdown restrictions are now in place here on Oahu. They're similar to those we had back in March. One of the major differences this time, though, is that church services are allowed, but with restrictions. The stay-at-home work-from-home order says you're only allowed to leave your home if you're performing essential work, visiting an essential business, or doing an essential activity. It's okay to go to the grocery store, visit your doctor, or pick up supplies needed to work from home. You're also allowed to visit graveyards, care for someone in another household, and outdoor exercise like swimming, surfing, running, and walking are fine. The list of businesses deemed essential is long. It includes hospitals, pharmacies, grocery stores and farmers markets, gas stations and auto repair shops, the media, hardware stores, and other service providers like plumbers and electricians. Mail and shipping and delivery services can continue. Laundromats and dry cleaners are also okay. Childcare and service providers that care for those with disabilities or substance use disorders are also on the list, along with professional services like legal, insurance, and real estate. Funeral and mortuary services are permitted, however, those events are limited to 10 people or less. Fabric stores can stay open, but they can only have 2 customers inside at a time. Airlines, taxis, and rental car companies are essential, and film and television production can continue. Restaurants must suspend dine-in service and focus on takeout only. Essential government functions will continue, such as first responders and law enforcement, the judiciary, jails and prisons, along with essential infrastructure like construction, water, sewer, and gas. The city did announce its satellite city halls and driver's licensing centers will be suspending in-person services for the 2-week closure. Officials say appointments during that time will be canceled and rescheduled as a priority. Online and mail-in applications and payments will still be processed. The rules on face coverings and no social gatherings are still in place. Beaches, parks, and trails also remain closed.
Honestly, I don't think anybody was listening well enough when we were talking from the medical perspective that the damn tidal wave was coming of patients.
That tidal wave has arrived. As of last night, 275 COVID patients were hospitalized, a record high, forcing short-staffed hospitals to divert some ambulances to other facilities. Now let's talk more about the outbreak's economic impact. You know, stands at Aloha Stadium, they've been empty since March, and officials there are using this time to try to put together a post-pandemic plan. Here's our senior digital content producer, Melanie Yamaguchi, with more.
Outside Aloha Stadium, a sea of unused rental cars sit in the parking lot where families used to converge for pregame tailgating. Inside, a large tarp is used to cover the stadium's turf to protect it from sun damage. It's never been this quiet in August. There's no football, and sold-out crowds for Bruno Mars concerts are a thing of the past. Now, the stadium sits idle, with food distributions as its biggest events.
As soon as we got the word that stay-at-home order, we basically shut down operations. So that included our swap meet as well. And so we pretty much sent people, some work from home, and the only thing that remained here were some essential maintenance functions.
Events like graduations, monster truck tours, and UH football games are also off the calendar entirely. Stadium officials don't know when they will welcome people back, but are working on a specific safety plan that includes slashing its capacity to 25%.
In the short term, I think we know it's going to be a challenge, and it's with the social distancing, it's going to limit what you can, how many people you can fill in here. I think long term, we're all remaining optimistic.
Andrews is looking forward to the day the stadium can reopen again because, he says, the community needs it.
I think every person that lives in Hawaii, or at least on Oahu, has had an experience here. People, again, they want to come together. They want to be part of something big and have that energy and have a shared experience. And you don't get that by watching on TV. You don't have that shared experience.
Melanie Yamaguchi, Hawaii News Now.
President Trump is headlining the fourth and final night of the Republican National Convention. And to give us a preview of what's to come, we're joined now by CBS's Margaret Brennan. Aloha, Margaret. What can we expect to hear from the president tonight?
Well, you can expect President Trump to deliver his sort of final closing arguments to the American people from the White House. He will do so in front of a live audience, different from how Joe Biden presented his acceptance speech at the end of the Democratic convention. President Trump is trying to replicate what an in-person convention would have been like and use the power of the office, controversially, of course, because he is using these federal resources in a political way. But the argument the president will make will be one in which he's emphasizing something, a phrase you've heard quite often, law and order. He is finding that, along with the economy, are two things that poll well for him politically, particularly among Republicans. And for him, he will frame some of what the racial strife and protests our country have been experiencing in the framework of, well, it would be better in a second term. I could handle this differently. And in fact, if I were only allowed to do more now, we wouldn't have this happening. Remember, he constantly makes that argument about being able to send in federal resources to cities and states to help out and establish order out of violence, as he characterizes it. That's a very different message than what he offered with the coronavirus, which was no federal intervention. It's all up to the cities and states themselves. So on this, he finds it's a useful argument. You'll also expect him to make an announcement about purchasing of testing supplies to help deal with the crisis, COVID-19 crisis. And we also expect him to make an argument and lean into the idea that he would be better at rebuilding the economy than his Democratic opponent.
Is there a chance that what's happening with Hurricane Laura is going to affect tonight's festivities?
Well, right now, the White House has said they are confident they can continue to hold this outdoors, and they haven't had to reschedule things. There was some talk at one point about the president rescheduling his speech for Monday if the storm was that hard hitting in the southern part of the United States today. That hasn't happened. They are moving ahead with this. But certainly the devastation that could happen related to the storm is something that he will have to once again demonstrate he can respond to, responding to national crises, many at one time, a health crisis, an economic crisis, and in these immediate storm damage response in the midst of that. Remember that containing people into space and shelters, for example, could be a public health danger, is something that he has to show he can move around and deal with. And instead, it is not something that he in the past has wanted to put himself out front for, and in fact has often said it's up to local governments to do. So how he responds as president, as commander-in-chief, is something he will be judged on.
Right. And it seems like some of the speeches we've heard so far, like from Vice President Mike Pence and First Lady Melania Trump, they seem to be pushing this idea that regardless of some of the controversial things the president says and does, they say he still gets the job done. Do you feel this is a message that will resonate with voters?
Well, it is something that apparently resonates with the self-identified Republicans that we have polled. It doesn't resonate with all voters. But for those who have decided they are all in for the new Republican Party as reshaped by President Trump, disruption is a virtue. That is what the president has sold, right? I mean, that is what he campaigned on, that he was an outsider coming in. Now he's an insider, and he continues to argue that when you have senior established figures say that what he's doing is wrong, that it's not a matter of the substance of their criticism, but rather just their objection to him in the first place. So he has sort of turned that into a tool that apparently is effective with some of his supporters, but in the end, obviously, the report card that he leaves behind will be his response to the crises that we're dealing with. And some of those hard facts are things you can't spin. But the president has turned sort of bucking the establishment into something he says is a winning feature.
All right, CBS's Margaret Brennan, mahalo for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take you outside right now. You're looking live at Aloha Tower, where the temperature is now 85 degrees. We've got Guy Hoggy here with the latest update.
Aloha on this Thursday. We've got typical trade wind weather today. Lots of sunshine expected. And the weather that we see today is not going to change very much over the next 7 days. High temperatures running past 91 for some areas, leeward areas especially. And we will see a few windward and mountain showers, mainly in the early morning and overnight hours. But rainfall totals over the next 7 days will be very, very skimpy. Trade winds will run steady through today, about 10 to 20, getting stronger by Saturday and Sunday, but the overall weather pattern was not going to change. So get used to this. Lots of sunshine, warm temperatures in the upper 80s, maybe past 90 for some areas, and those trade winds running nice and steady today and tomorrow at 10 to 20. Now, there's not a whole lot of surf to speak of today or the next few days. 3 feet or less everywhere. The best waves probably in town at 1 to 3, and the UV index is at 13. It's at extreme levels. And like I said, the weather's not going to change in any significant way, although the winds will be fluctuating in speed over the next several days. 10 to 20 today and tomorrow, getting a little bit stronger over the weekend, and then slowing down again on Tuesday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Well, if you're into stars, and I'm not talking about guy hockey, and Star Wars, get ready to be super happy, folks.
That's you, Jonathan. Stars in Star Wars?
It is. You got me. I gotta show you guys this, though. Check this out, check this out, check this out. It's a new image coming to us from a galaxy far, far away. It actually is a galaxy. But do you see what it looks like? Do you see?
Ears?
No. A lot of people say it looks like Darth Vader's fighter ship. You see it? See, like,
well, I wouldn't know that.
We gotta watch Star Wars, my friend. Unlike Star Wars, though, this galaxy is named really boring. It's TXS0128 plus 554. That was my best CP3O impression, or R2D2 impression. Yeah, this is from astronomers. They use a global network of radio antennas to discover it, and it's pretty cool.
That's
cool,
very
right?
cool. Yeah, so lots of cool stuff seem to be going up for auction these days. And if you feel the need for speed, well, this one may interest you. So this helmet was made for Tom Cruise in his 1986 blockbuster Top Gun. It's going on the auction block in Los Angeles and is expected to fetch more than $65,000. Now, the helmet has eagle stickers and Maverick call signs on it. The studio says 10 helmets were made for Cruise's character, so it's unclear if this one was actually used.
All right. I was sort of teasing you about Star Wars, but I have not seen Top Gun.
That is just as bad, my friend.
Right?
I've seen Star Wars, but I don't know what the name of the ships
Fighter
are called.
Ships are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our pandemic movie nights are going to get really good.
That's right. And speaking of movies, Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom have welcomed their little bundle of joy, Daisy Dove Bloom. This is the couple's first child together, and they got engaged last year. Congratulations to the happy family.
More baby news. Good news.
Yep. And speaking of babies, a baby panda at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. made a solo appearance today. Its mother, Mei Jiang, left the cub for a few minutes, giving Panda Cam viewers a close-up of the growing cub. Now, upon her return, Mama immediately picked up the cub and cradled it. This is actually Mom's 4th successful pregnancy. She's 22 years old, so zoo officials consider this late in panda years, and her chances of having a healthy birth were slim, but baby looks to be doing good.
Oh, yes, it does. That is adorable.
Is it, though?
Yeah, I think so. It's unreal, really, to think how big the mother is and how tiny that little baby. It will get cute. You guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now. We'll be here tomorrow for your Aloha Friday. Stay safe.